Hi. In this video, we're looking at the third print in Elizabeth Catlett's portfolio for my people. This print is called To Marry, and we see it divided in two. In the top section, we see a couple who are about to kiss at the end of their marriage ceremony. This is a larger image. It takes up a little bit more than half of the page, and there are kind of muted colors. There's a gold, but it's um, not evenly colored. It's not a flat color. There's a lot of white coming through, a lot of color of the paper coming through. There's a lighter blue, and even the red of the tie that the man is wearing is more of a red orange. It's not a highly intense red. Below this, we see a much smaller image, but one that balances out the top one. So it doesn't fight for our attention. It also doesn't recede into the background. And it's this combination of the smaller size and the highly saturated bold red and black that we see that creates this balance with the much larger and more lightly colored colors that we see happening. This relates to the fifth stanza of Margaret Walker's poem For My People. Within this, we see the first half of the stanza matching the top of the print. So these joyful moments, but then we see the flip side to this. So within the Black community, within the Black experience, there is a constant threat, and that comes from many sources, from illness, from the effects of poverty, but most pressingly, most direly, it is in the form of violence against the Black body. And here we see the example of lynching being illustrated by Catlett and mentioned specifically by Walker. Now, this kind of split composition is something that Catlett has done before. And we see a similar kind of much larger top image contrasting a smaller lower image in Girl in the City from 1979. Within this, there is in Girl in the City, we see not quite the balance being struck, right? The girl is the predominant image, it takes over, and the city is sort of secondary. And we see a similar colors, a similar kind of intensity, balance of shadows in both the representation of the girl and the buildings of the city. And that contrasts what we see in To Marry, where we have the much larger and lighter colored couple up top, and then the more intensely colored and smaller image below. In both, we get a sense that Khaled is playing with some kind of unseen danger, or the threat, the potential threat of danger in the girl in the city, and also kind of just being Black in America. If we focus on the top image, we see her repeating some of the strategies that she's used in other prints. So on the right side here, we see Madonna from 1982. It's also a lithograph. And in both of these, we see gesture being incredibly important and the relationship of the bodies. So in Madonna, it's this tilt of the head, the angles, and even the shape of the head, creating a circle that leads us around from the mother's to the boys to the girl's head. There's also the arm that holds the children near, that creates a protective space for them, but also, again, completes the kind of circumnavigation of the print by our eyes. If we look at To Marry, in that top half of it, we see these points of kind of tangential contact where the tips of their noses, their lips, and their hands are coming together. And I think, especially in the way that their faces are positioned and just barely touching or just about to touch, we get this sense of energy, and a kind of potential energy that is building, that we can see that this is just the beginning, and quite literally the beginning of their lives together as a married couple. And there seems to be a lot of hope. If we look at the way that Catlett highlights the faces, we see kind of similar shadowing happening in singing their songs, but in the way that they're put together, that kind of creates a heart shape, that is then echoed in the rest of their bodies' poses. In contrast, we have this stark representation of the body below. Now, Catlett was thinking about civil rights throughout her work. Um, in fact, as a teenager, she protested on the steps of the Supreme Court with a noose around her neck to protest lynching. In this representation of the lithograph on the right, we see her looking at the Civil Rights Congress from 1950. This was an organization led by William Patterson, who was a civil rights lawyer. He also presented to the United Nations General Assembly in 1951, accusing the United States government of genocide for its treatment of Black Americans through slavery up to the current time period. And so we see this kind of repeated threat on the Black body. In Civil Rights Congress, we see the threat kind of looming as this ghastly, ghostly Ku Klux Klan member behind the boy. And in To Mary, we see it violently acted out. Now, it may not surprise you, at this time, Elizabeth Catlett was living in Mexico, and the United States government was keeping track of her activities, both her involvement in the TGP, which was putting out socially engaged prints, often kind of with a communist or socialist bent. And Catlett was working there, her making prints, and also staying engaged with the civil rights movement in the United States. So she was under the State Department's watch, and in the 60s, she was labeled as an undesirable alien by the State Department. So she was not able to come back to the United States without special permission. In 1962, she renounced her US citizenship and became a Mexican citizen. So within this print, we see her grappling with some very disparate and intense ideas about what it means to live your life as a Black person, experiencing the highs and the joys of marriage and love, but that constant threat of danger and violence that one experiences living in America.